Nathaniel Harper tugged at the frayed collar of a denim jacket borrowed from his old college roommate. Its unfamiliar weight, a stark contrast to the tailored suits that hung in his penthouse closet, as he maneuvered a rusty 2007 Toyota Corolla into the gravel lot of Rosie's Diner, a modest establishment glowing with neon signs on the outskirts of town. His 5-year-old twin daughters, Lily and Sophie, chattered in the back seat, their voices a melody of excitement, Sophie clutching a well-loved stuffed bear named Mr. Paws, while Lily hugged a glitter-dusted unicorn, its mane tangled from countless bedtime cuddles. The cool November air carried the scent of fried onions and fresh coffee as Nathaniel unbuckled the girls, their tiny sneakers kicking against the car seats, their curls barely contained by mismatched hair, ties one blue, one pink, both pulled from a drawer of forgotten things, a single dad testing a theory, wondering if anyone could see past his wealth, to the man still piecing himself together 3 years after losing his wife, Ellen, to a sudden illness. He'd arranged a blind date through an app, posing as a mid-level office worker with a tight budget, trading his Bentley and driver for this creaking car and a pair of scuffed sneakers that pinched his toes. The idea had come to him late one night, watching Lily and Sophie sleep, their small hands curled around each other. The diner's door jangled as he entered, a daughter on each hip, their giggles mixing with the clink of dishes. The hostess, Marge, her badge slightly crooked, raising an eyebrow at the sight of the trio, her voice low as she whispered, "A date with kids." Nathaniel offered a sheepish grin, adjusting the diaper bag slung over his shoulder, its faded canvas heavy with snacks and crayons, and said, "Not exactly, just dinner with my girls." Marge's skepticism softened, and she gestured to a corner booth by a Rain Street window, the neon glow of a Rosie's sign casting pink and blue hues across the checkered tablecloth. Nathaniel settled Lily and Sophie into booster seats, Sophie immediately reaching for a sugar packet, her curious fingers prying it open, while Lily hugged her unicorn tighter, her wide eyes scanning the bustling diner, its walls adorned with vintage license plates and faded photos of smiling patrons. His phone buzzed in the pocket of his borrowed jeans, a curt message from his date, flashing on the screen. "Sorry, can't do broke, single dads, good luck." His heart sank, not for the rejection, but for the confirmation of his fears, that his wealth was a lens no one could look past, leaving him to wonder if he'd ever find someone who saw the man who sang off-key lullabies and wiped away tears over scraped knees. He was about to gather the girls, their booster seats squeaking as he reached for the diaper bag, when the diner's door swung open, and Clara Bennett stepped inside, her knit sweater damp from a light drizzle, a worn paperback novel tucked under her arm, its cover creased from countless readings. Her hazel eyes scanned the room, squinting briefly at her phone, then landing on Nathaniel's table, where Sophie was now sprinkling sugar on the tablecloth, and Lily was whispering secrets to her unicorn. Clara approached with a nervous smile, brushing dark hair behind her ear, her voice soft as she said, "Hi, I'm Clara, are you?" Trailing off as she glanced at the girls, then back at him, her expression warm but uncertain. Nathaniel opened his mouth to correct her, to say she had the wrong table, that he wasn't her date, but something stopped him the way she knelt to Sophie's level, her eyes bright as she said, "That's a cool bear. Does it have a name?" Sophie lit up, launching into a story about Mr. Paws' adventures in a make-believe forest, her hands waving animatedly. Clara laughed, a sound like wind chimes, and settled into the booth across from Nathaniel, her presence like a warm blanket on a chilly night, unraveling the knot of disappointment in his chest. She didn't ask about his job or car, didn't probe for details of his life, instead listening as Lily shyly whispered that her unicorn, Sparkle, could fly to the moon, Clara nodding with such earnestness that Lily's cheeks flushed with delight. Nathaniel watched, stunned, as the girls warmed to her instantly, their usual shyness with strangers replaced by giggles and chatter. Sophie offering Clara a sugar packet, Lily sliding a crayon across the table. For the first time in years, he felt not as the CEO with a penthouse and a private jet, but as a father fumbling through grief, trying to hold his little world together, his heart stirring with a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, someone could love him for who he was, not what he owned. Clara Bennett slid into the worn vinyl booth at Rosie's Diner, her damp sweater clinging slightly to her shoulders as she set her paperback on the table, its pages curling from years of love, and smiled at Sophie, who was now narrating Mr. Paul's latest adventure, involving a pirate ship made of clouds, Nathaniel Harper sat across from her, his heart still reeling from the sting of his date's rejection. But the sight of Clara's ease with his daughters, Lily and Sophie, softened the ache, her laughter weaving through. Nathaniel watched his usual guardedness melting, struck by how Clara didn't flinch when Sophie accidentally knocked over her water glass, the liquid pooling on the tablecloth, instead grabbing a napkin and turning the spill into a game, dabbing it into the shape of a lopsided heart. She shared a story of her own, about the time she tripped during a school play and turned her fall into an impromptu dance, making her third graders laugh instead of cry, her voice warm with self-deprecation, her hands gesturing animatedly. The girls were enchanted, their eyes wide, and Nathaniel felt something stir. When the server dropped off the check, a small leather folder placed discreetly beside the ketchup bottle, Nathaniel reached for his pocket, only to freeze, realizing that borrowed jeans held no wallet, his stomach lurching as he pictured the awkwardness of admitting he couldn't pay. Clara noticed, her gaze soft, and without a word, she pulled a worn wallet from her bag, slid a card to the server, and said, "I've got this, no big deal," her smile brushing off his stammered protest, her kindness like a lifeline in a moment of quiet panic. Nathaniel managed a horse. "You didn't have to," but Clara just shrugged, saying, "I've had worse dates, trust me." One guy brought his pet lizard, her teasing grin making Sophie giggle and Lily hide a smile behind sparkle. The gesture wasn't about money. Nathaniel could have bought the diner outright, but about her seeing him, not as a headline or a failure, but as a dad trying to navigate a messy evening with two little girls. As dinner wound down, spaghetti sauce dotting Sophie's chin and Lily's napkin now a canvas of stars and hearts, Clara leaned back, her novel untouched, her attention fully on the girls' chatter about their favorite animals, her questions, drawing out stories Nathaniel hadn't heard, like Sophie's dream of a bear sanctuary. When it was time to leave, Nathaniel offered to drive her home, joking about the Corolla's questionable heater, but Clara shook her head, saying, "I like the walk, it's how I think," her voice gentle but firm, her independence clear. She knelt to hug the girls, promising to draw a better dog next time, and Sophie slipped her a crumpled napkin with a heart scrawled in red crayon, Clara tucking it into her pocket like a treasure. As she walked into the drizzly night, her figure fading under the streetlights, Nathaniel buckled the girls into their car seats, their eyelids heavy but smiles wide, Lily whispering, "She's nice, Daddy." Driving home, the Corolla's engine rattling, Nathaniel's mind lingered on Clara's laugh, the way she'd turned a spilled glass into a game, the way her kindness didn't demand anything in return, a rarity in his world of calculated exchanges. The girls dozed off, Sophie's bear tucked under her chin, Lily's unicorn smudged with sauce, and a single napkin, adorned with Clara's LLINK greater than heart and stars, fluttered on the dashboard, a fragile reminder of the night. Nathaniel's chest tightened with a hope he hadn't dared to feel since Ellen, a hope that maybe someone could see him for who he was, a father, a man, not a mogul. He pulled into his driveway, the girls' soft snores filling the car, and decided he couldn't let this night be the end, that he had to find Clara again. Her warmth, a spark he wasn't ready to let fade. Clara Bennett's laugh echoed in Nathaniel Harper's mind as he drove through the quiet streets, the memory of her napkin heart tucked in his jacket pocket, a fragile keepsake from a night that felt like a turning point, its warmth lingering like the scent of rain on pavement. The twins, Lily and Sophie, slept soundly in their car seats, their faces smudged with spaghetti sauce. Mr. Paws and Sparkle the unicorn cradled in their arms, unaware of the shift in their father's heart, a man who'd spent 3 years shielding himself from hope since Elon's death left a void no boardroom victory could fill. Nathaniel couldn't shake Clara's ease with his daughters, the way she'd turned a spilled glass into a game, paid the bill without a second thought, her kindness untainted by the expectations that shadowed his wealth. By morning, her name was a quiet hum in his thoughts, her passing mention of teaching at a school near a community garden on Maple Street, the only clue he had to find her again. On a crisp Saturday, he packed a picnic basket with peanut butter, sandwiches and apple slices, telling the girls they were off to an adventure, his heart pounding with a mix of nerves and anticipation. The community garden was alive with families, children darting through rows of sunflowers, volunteers handing out seed packets, and there, under a sprawling oak, was Clara, her dark hair tied back, a picture book open in her lap as she read to a circle of kids, her voice rising and falling like a melody, making a tale of a lost duckling come alive. Lily spotted her first, tugging Nathaniel's hand, whispering, "It's the nice lady," while Sophie bounced, clutching Mr. Paws, her excitement spilling over. Before he could stop them, the twins ran forward, weaving through the crowd, their sneakers kicking up dirt, and Clara looked up, mid-dance, her eyes widening with surprise, then softening with recognition as the girls threw their arms around her, their giggles disrupting the story circle. She closed the book, laughing, and hugged them back, her sweater catching on Sophie's bare, her warmth as effortless as it had been at the diner. Nathaniel approached, hands in his pockets, his faded jeans feeling less like a disguise now, and said, "Didn't expect to see you here, but the girls insisted on a garden day." Clara stood, brushing dirt from her knees, her smile cautious but genuine, and replied, "I'm here every weekend, reading to whoever shows up." She glanced at the twins, who were now showing her their picnic basket, and added, "Looks like I've got VIPs today." Nathaniel hesitated, then admitted the truth, his voice low. "At the diner, you weren't my date. I should have said something, but you sat down, and the girls lit up, and I couldn't walk away from that." Clara's brow furrowed, processing. Then she nodded, her gaze steady, saying, "I wondered, but you didn't feel like a stranger. You felt real." Her words hit him like a wave, washing away the fear that she'd see only the CEO if she knew his name, and he shared a quiet truth. "I'm just a dad trying to do right by them. I don't get that chance often." Clara knelt to Lily, who offered her a daisy, and said, "You're doing pretty well. They're amazing." Her voice soft, her eyes catching his with a sincerity that made his chest ache. She shared a glimpse of her own life, growing up in a small apartment with a single mom, books their only luxury, teaching now her way of giving kids the magic she found in stories. Nathaniel listened, struck by her lack of bitterness, her gratitude for small joys mirroring the way Ellen used to find light in ordinary moments, a parallel that felt like permission to keep going. The garden buzzed around them, kids chasing, butterflies, parents chatting, but their corner felt like its own world. Lily and Sophie pulling Clara to see a ladybug, her laughter mingling with theirs. As the sun dipped, Clara mentioned a library reading event the next weekend, her tone casual but her eyes hopeful, saying, "If you're free, the girls might like it. We're doing a book about a flying cat." Sophie clapped, Lily nodded shyly, and Nathaniel felt a spark of possibility, not the fleeting kind of his past dates, but something rooted, real. He promised to bring the girls, his voice steady despite the flutter in his chest. And as they packed up their picnic, Clara slipped the daisy into her book, her fingers brushing the petals, a small gesture that felt like a promise, driving home. The twins chatted about Clara's stories, their excitement a balm to Nathaniel's cautious heart, the garden's colors vivid in his mind, Clara's voice a quiet anchor he wanted to hold on to. The library on Maple Street smelled of old pages and polished wood, its warm light spilling over shelves where children's books sat in colorful rows, and Nathaniel Harper felt a quiet thrill as he led Lily and Sophie through the doors, their small hands tugging him toward the reading corner where Clara Bennett was already surrounded by kids, her voice weaving a tale of a cat with wings soaring over a moonlit town. Over the past few weeks, Nathaniel had brought the twins to every library event Clara mentioned, each visit deepening the fragile bond from that first diner night. Her presence, a steady rhythm in their chaotic lives, like a song he hadn't realized he'd forgotten the words to. Lily clutched a crayon drawing of a flying cat, inspired by Clara's story, while Sophie bounced, whispering about showing Clara Mr. Paws' new pirate hat, a scrap of fabric Nathaniel had sewn clumsily the night before. Clara spotted them, her smile breaking through the story's cadence, and she waved them over, making space on the rug for the girls, who settled in like they belonged, their eyes fixed on her as she made the cat's adventures come alive with a playful growl. Nathaniel leaned against a bookshelf, his heart swelling at the sight of his daughters so at ease, their laughter blending with the other children's, Clara's gentle humor drawing them out of their shells in a way he hadn't seen since. Ellen's bedtime stories filled their nursery. After the reading, Clara joined them at a low table, where the girls proudly showed her their drawings. Lily's cat, now sporting a glittery tail, Sophie's bear wielding a pirate sword, They spent an hour crafting paper kites, Clara teaching the girls how to fold wings that might catch the wind, her fingers steady as she helped Sophie with a tricky crease, her patience a quiet gift that made Nathaniel's chest ache with gratitude. Over coffee at a nearby park later that week, Clara shared more of her world, her voice soft as she described teaching kids who came to school hungry, how she kept snacks in her desk and read to them during lunch to give them a moment of peace, her eyes distant with a mix of pride and weariness. Nathaniel opened up too, telling her about Elon's love for painting, how her watercolors still hung in the girl's room, the grief that lingered like a shadow but softened in Clara's presence, her listening so attentive it felt like she was holding his words in her hands. Their meetings became a rhythm, library readings, park picnics, a rainy afternoon at a museum where Clara helped the girls make clay animals, her laughter bright as Sophie's lopsided bear collapsed into a blob. But one sunny afternoon, as they walked through the park, Lily holding Clara's hand and Sophie skipping ahead, a stranger with a phone snapped a photo. The click barely audible but enough to make Nathaniel's stomach twist, his instincts sharpened by years of dodging paparazzi. Within hours, the image was online, a grainy shot of Clara laughing with the twins, captioned, "Who's the mystery woman with Harper's heirs?" By evening, Nathaniel's name was trending, his CEO status splashed across blogs, and Clara's quiet life unraveled as reporters dug up her name, her school, her past, painting her as a fortune hunter chasing a billionaire's heart. Nathaniel saw the storm unfold on his phone, his jaw tight, knowing the media's hunger for scandal could swallow the fragile world they'd built. At Clara's school, parents whispered, administrators fielded calls from donors, and by Monday, the principal called her in, his voice heavy with regret, saying, "The attention's disrupting classes, we need you to take a leave until it settles." Clara's heart sank, her job her sanctuary of story times and student smiles slipping away. The life she'd carved from years of hard work, now a casualty of Nathaniel's spotlight. She stopped answering his texts, her phone buzzing with his apologies, her apartment feeling smaller as she sat on her couch, staring at the daisy Lily had given her, now pressed in her book, its petals a reminder of the joy she'd felt and the chaos that followed. Nathaniel, desperate, drove to her building, his borrowed Corolla blending into the street, but Clara's silence was a wall he couldn't breach, her absence a weight heavier than any boardroom failure. The girls noticed, Sophie asking why Clara wasn't at the library, Lily's drawings now tinged with sad-eyed cats, their confusion breaking Nathaniel's heart as he realized how deeply Clara had woven into their lives. Clara, alone, walked to the community garden, hoping to clear her mind, but the sight of kids running through sunflowers only reminded her of the twins, their trust in her a warmth she wasn't ready to lose. She clutched the daisy, her resolve wavering, wondering if she'd been wrong to pull away, if the connection they'd built could withstand the world's noise. Clara Bennett sat on the floor of her small apartment, surrounded by stacks of children's books she'd meant to donate, her fingers tracing the pressed daisy Lily had given her, now tucked between the pages of her favorite novel, its fragile petals a bittersweet reminder of the laughter that had filled her days with Nathaniel Harper and his twins, Lily and Sophie, before the media storm tore her world apart. The silence of her home was heavy, broken only by the distant hum of traffic, her phone dark since she'd stopped answering Nathaniel's texts, each one a plea to talk, to let him fix the chaos that had cost her job at the school she loved, where she'd spent years building trust with kids who saw her as a safe harbor. The viral photo of her with the twins had unleashed a flood of headlines, branding her a gold digger, her quiet life dissected by strangers who didn't know she'd paid for that diner meal without a second thought, or how Sophie's pirate hat stories made her heart ache with joy. Clara's chest tightened as she recalled the principal's regretful voice, the way her students' drawings still hung on her fridge, their absence now a wound she couldn't soothe. Nathaniel, meanwhile, paced his modest cottage, a refuge from his CEO life, his mind racing with guilt over the spotlight that had burned Clara, the girl's questions about her absence cutting deeper than any boardroom loss. Lily's latest drawing, a cat with drooping whiskers labeled Miss Clara, sat on the kitchen table, Sophie's bear now propped beside it, its pirate hat askew, both girls quieter than usual. Their small world dimmed without Clara's stories and warmth. Determined to make things right, Nathaniel bundled the twins into the Corolla, their hopeful eyes spurring him on. and drove to Clara's apartment, parking a block away to avoid lingering reporters, his heart pounding as he stood at her door. The girls clutching a new drawing, this one a heart-filled scene labeled Our Clara, its colors bright with their longing. He knocked, his voice steady but raw, calling through the door, "Clara, I can't undo the noise, but I can stand between you and it. Just let me try. For the girls, for us." Inside, Clara froze, her hand hovering over the lock, tears welling as she heard Sophie's small voice chime, "We miss you, Miss Clara," followed by Lily's whisper, "Please come back." The words cracked something open in her, the fear that had kept her distant, warring with the love she felt for the twins, their trust, a tether she couldn't sever. She didn't open the door, her voice trembling as she spoke through it. "Nathaniel, you have to keep them safe. This mess, it's too much for them." His response was quiet, resolute. "They're already in it. Clara, they ask for you every night. They need you, and so do I." The sincerity in his voice, the weight of his confession, made her knees weak, her mind flashing to the diner, the park, the library, moments where she'd felt like part of their world, not an outsider in his. She told him to go, her words barely audible. "I'm sorry, but I need you to leave." And he did, his footsteps heavy on the stairs, the girl's soft sniffles fading, leaving Clara slumped against the door, her tears falling onto the daisies. Page. The next morning, she found their drawing taped to her door, a vibrant heart with 3 stick figures, her, Lily, Sophie under the words, "We bring our hearts." Its childlike hope piercing her defenses, making her question if she'd been protecting herself or punishing them all. Clara walked to the community garden, seeking clarity among the sunflowers, but every child's laugh reminded her of the twins, every storybook in her bag, a ghost of their library afternoons. Her resolve crumbling as she realized she'd fallen in love with their little family, not just the girls but Nathaniel, his quiet strength, his grief-worn heart that mirrored her own losses. Back home, she stared at the drawing, her fingers brushing the crayon hearts, and made a choice, texting Nathaniel, "Dinner at my place, tomorrow, 6 p.m, just us." Her heart racing with fear and hope, knowing she was stepping into the unknown. Nathaniel, read the message, relief flooding him, the girls cheering when he told them, their excitement a spark that lit up the cottage, promising a chance to rebuild what the world had tried to break. Clara spent the day preparing, her small kitchen filled with the scent of homemade soup, her nerves steadied by the thought of Sophie's giggles and Lily's shy smiles, ready to face whatever came next, not for headlines but for the family she'd begun to call her own. Clara Bennett stood in her cozy apartment kitchen, stirring a pot of vegetable soup, the steam curling upward as she adjusted the flame, her heart fluttering with a mix of nerves and hope. The crayon drawing of 3 stick figures labeled Our Clara now pinned to her fridge, a vibrant reminder of why she'd invited Nathaniel Harper and his twins, Lily and Sophie, for dinner tonight. The past weeks had been a storm, her teaching job suspended, her name smeared across tabloids, her quiet life appended by a single photo of her with the girls. Yet the memory of their hugs, Sophie's pirate hat tales, and Nathaniel's earnest plea through her door had pulled her back, urging her to choose love over fear. The table was set with mismatched plates, a loaf of bread she'd baked that morning, much like her resolve to rebuild what the media had tried to shatter. When the doorbell chimed, Clara smoothed her sweater, her pulse quickening, and opened the door to find Nathaniel, his kind eyes crinkling, the girls beside him, Lily clutching a new drawing, Sophie waving Mr. Paws, his pirate hat now adorned with a tiny feather. They rushed into her arms, their warmth melting her doubts, Sophie shouting, "We brought cookies," as Lily shyly offered a sketch of a cat and bear dancing under stars, Clara's laughter mingling with their giggles, the apartment instantly alive with their energy. Nathaniel stepped inside, his faded jeans a nod to their first night, his smile, hesitant but warm, saying, "We missed this, all of it," his voice low, carrying the weight of their shared silence. Dinner was a beautiful chaos, soup splashing as Sophie gestured wildly about a school play, Lily dipping bread into her bowl, her eyes bright as Clara asked about Sparkle's latest adventure, the room filled with the kind of ease Clara hadn't felt since her own childhood dinners, when her mother's stories turned tight budgets into magic. Nathaniel watched, his heart swelling at how Clara listened, her questions drawing out Sophie's chatter and Lily's quiet pride, her her presence stitching together the pieces of his family that grief had frayed. After dessert cookies the girls had helped bake, slightly lumpy but sweet, Clara suggested a game, pulling out a deck of cards, teaching them Go Fish, with exaggerated voices for each card, making Lily giggle so hard she snorted, Nathaniel's laughter joining in, a sound he hadn't heard from himself in years. As the evening wound down, Clara knelt to help Lily tie a loose shoelace, her fingers gentle, and Sophie leaned against her, whispering, "Can you read us a story?" Clara's eyes met Nathaniel's, a silent question, and he nodded, his throat tight, as she led the girls to her couch, pulling a worn book about a lost bear finding a home, her voice soft and theatrical, the twins curling into her sides, their yawns growing heavy. When the story ended, Lily's voice was small. "Miss Clara, can we call you Mama Clara?" The question hung in the air, Clara's breath catching, tears brimming as she looked at their trusting faces. Then at Nathaniel, who sat frozen, his eyes glistening with something deeper than gratitude, a hope he'd buried since Ellen's passing. Clara knelt, taking their hands, her voice trembling. "If that's what you want, then yes, absolutely." Her tears falling as Sophie hugged her tight, Lily's arms wrapping around them both, their love a quiet force that filled the room. Nathaniel stood, crossing to them, and took Clara's hand, his touch steady, saying, "You've given them something I couldn't, a safe place to land." His words, raw, unguarded. Later, as the girls dozed on the couch, Clara and Nathaniel sat at the table, the daisy between them, and he spoke softly, "I want to build something for you, a reading program for kids like the ones you teach, the ones who need stories most, no spotlight, just you leading it." Clara's eyes widened, her dream of reaching underserved kids suddenly within reach, and she nodded, her voice thick. "Let's do it, together." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a bracelet woven from colorful yarn made by the girls, its uneven strands perfect in their imperfection, and said, "This isn't a ring, not yet, but it's a promise, Clara, to be us, with them, no matter what the world throws." She slipped it onto her wrist, her smile breaking through tears. "We've been a family for a while, you're just naming it now." The girls stirred, Sophie mumbling, "Mama Clara," in her sleep, and Nathaniel laughed, a sound of release. As Clara leaned against him, the weight of the past weeks lifting, their new reading program, dubbed Storyhaven, took shape in quiet meetings, Clara selecting books, Nathaniel funding it discreetly, their focus on the kids, not the headlines, their love growing in small moments, park walks, bedtime stories, Lily's drawings now covering Clara's fridge, a testament to a family forged, not by grand gestures but by trust, laughter, and a night at the wrong table that turned everything right.